So, hello everyone, and a warm welcome to this panel today. My name is Matilda, and I will be your moderator. And here next to me, we have Robin Jagielski from DJ Mag. Give a big round of applause, please. So, in today's panel, we will talk about how it is to go from club gigs to festival headliners. How can we make strategies for career growth? And we were also supposed to have Benamar Zohri from Adrenaline with us today, but unfortunately he got stuck at the airport in Madrid and could not make it. So we're very sad about this, of course, but I think we will also manage anyways. Yes. So I would like to start with a little introduction of you, Robin. Would you like to introduce yourself and what your role and journey is in the music industry?
So nice to see you all, first of all. My name is Robin. I'm the co-owner of DJ Mag Germany. We are also owning a small artist management agency, which is mostly focused on more like commercial dance music, radio dance music. And we also have our own booking agency, which is divided into departments. The one is taking care of our small commercial artist roster. The other part is programming for clubs and festivals. So with that department, we are basically booking all kind of dance music, from techno to drum bass to radio music, but also sometimes other genres. So we have, for example, one festival where we also book like German pop music or Deutsche Schlager or things like that.
Thank you. So what we will talk a little bit about now and today is to kind of like, discover the next steps in your career. How can you accelerate as an artist? How can you get bigger gigs? And how to build momentum and reaching the main stage. So when we discussed this a few days ago, we also said it would maybe be a nice way to start a panel by just asking you in the audience, just throw out any words, ideas, how you think or things that you think are ingredients for success and growing as an artist in this sense. Any ideas from the audience? Networking?
You can be bold. You can all say something. It's not just us two on the stage.
Just producing at home and never leaving the house.
It can be an idea. In Corona, to be honest, it worked for a couple of artists. It worked especially for one good friend of mine, Avayon, so it could be the case.
Any other ideas?
Okay, so there's a lot of things I think that we can say or add if everybody's clueless, or at least nobody is bold enough to say something.
Then at least you can learn something here today. That's good. So, Robin, what would you say are the main aspects of ingredients for success?
I would say, first of all, it's the first step is not seeing success as something from a business standpoint. So seeing success at being famous, earning a lot of money, or all these kind of quite superficial things. I think the first thing that you should see is that being happy or getting there to be happy with your own art and being able to live a decent life and being able to also include your private life in that. That's the first step of seeing success, because I think if you are trying to get successful by only having the goal, being famous or earning money, then that won't happen. And then if you have these more like on the philosophical standpoint things sorted for you, I think it's very important that you have a team. Most of the people that I got to know over the 10 years that I'm doing this now always had a very long-term team which they worked together with for a long time, whether it be somebody who they started with who was, for example, the lawyer, their first lawyer, who then got them the connections to agencies or managements or labels, whether it was like the best friend who started to be the artist manager or the first agent. That is, in my opinion, the core ingredient. And then from there, it depends a little bit on your strategic and what kind of genre you are going. And also if you are planning to be more like an DJ act, more being a live act, and if you are more like a person who loves the stage, or if you are saying, hey, I want to produce music, I want to release the music, and being on stage is more like a way that adds up on this kind of things, but it's not my main goal. My main goal is music production.
And is there one strategy that works for everyone, or can you explain a little bit there maybe what different ways, how to navigate yourself? Because I guess there is not just one size fits all, right?
No, I wouldn't say there's just one strategy which works for everybody. I think that would have also been the interesting part with Benamar actually, because he's coming from a very suburban and more underground kind of music, which at the moment is starting to get very popular, and we are more or less coming from the direct opposite of that. So his kind of style and music is more developing over credible club gigs, credible connections in the techno industry, and our style of music also had a part of that, but oftentimes also really comes from streaming success, comes from radio placements, comes from, yeah, I'd say a little bit like strategic or political placements on stages, for example. So no, I wouldn't say that there's like just one way to go, especially therefore that every person is different. So it's the same not only for the artist, it's the same thing, for example, for the managers or an agent. Everybody has a different approach or has a different style that they work with. So you really shouldn't stand there and, for example, just because you like the music of one artist, compare yourself to that artist and think that the same route he was going might also apply to you.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think also, since you said, yeah, you should do your own thing, love your own art, and not just be in it for the success of simply just money and fame. So I guess it's also important to start with like building yourself some sort of objective of, okay, what is it actually, what does success mean for me? Where do I want to go? What is my journey and who am I as an artist? So maybe there also, to the topic of authenticity, what would you say to this?
I think nowadays authenticity is more important than ever, because with all the social media things that came up and are still coming up, the picture of an artist is spinning way faster than days before and years before. So you really need to be connected with your community and your audience. And I think that people always feel if something is off. And there's a very important lesson that I, for example, learned with our management company in the last years, that oftentimes when we are convinced from the management side, hey, this track is a hit, our artist should do that track, or we should jump on that collaboration or something like that. And the artist told us, I'm not really feeling it. I'm thinking that track doesn't have the vibe or something like that. And we kind of not forced him, because that's usually not what we're doing, but we talked with him and said, hey, but we think that could be the good point, and it could be smart to do that. And then he released that track. It didn't work, because when he said from the beginning on, hey, I'm not feeling the vibe with that production, or I'm not feeling the vibe with that release, obviously on social media and on platforms also, or when he's playing that track in his live performance, he wasn't really able to be connected by himself with that track, so he wasn't really able to show his community and the people in the crowd, for example, that he really thinks, hey, that is a track which I like and which I love. So the people also said, okay, it's another track that he released, but it doesn't seem like he really values that track. And then usually all the other stats when it comes to views on TikTok or when it comes to streams or things like that all went down as well.
Yeah, interesting. And you also spoke about the importance of having a team and to have like a long-term team and to work together for the same goals. Can you also make it independently? Like, is it very important to have a team in the first place, or can we also do it on our own?
I think that nobody is doing that on their own, but the question is always how you define a team, because most of the people might think very, conservative, very from a standpoint of business about the idea of a team. So for most people, a team in music business is, I'm having a lawyer, I'm having a manager, I'm having an agent, I maybe have a publisher and a label, and so this is kind of my team. But I think that especially nowadays, because labels, as most of you know, are not that important or don't need to be that important anymore than years ago, because their gatekeeping is losing more and more. Same oftentimes also goes for publishers. And in my opinion, I'm owning a management company and I'm owning a booking agency, but I think that also we are not that important anymore as we used to be. So I think the idea of the team can be your general surrounding. And I just said that, for example, when somebody just said, hey, producing in your bedroom, for me, Avayon, maybe some of you might know that artist. He had a hit with was called Pieces, which basically took off during Corona. And I really like to have him as an example because he's a super talented producer, songwriter, and singer. And he basically produced that track in his attic where he was living with his parents. And also he told the story about being depressive and all these kind of things. And then when he released the track and it took off, there have been those friends of him from South Bavaria, which I always knew from his surrounding. And those friends are still there. Those friends did a lot of his media stuff, a lot of his design stuff, and he always took them to, even when he got more famous, he always took them with him. And I think that this can also be your team. So your team is just people who understand your vision and people who are interested to contribute to your vision. And it doesn't matter if that is in a business or in a fixed business standpoint.
Yeah, so you can also see, let's say, your family members as your team if you say, okay, I can do most things on my own, but I would like to have support and, mental support from the people around me, so you can also...
Yeah, but also not only mental, they can also help you with certain things. So you would be surprised how many artists, also like very famous top 10 German chart hits artists from the dance music industry, actually have their own mother basically as their accountant. And we had a lot of talks when it came to booking or things like that. And it usually, most of the time, really was the mother who was doing that, who took care of the financials of the artist. And we thought that was always great because she really, she really honestly cared for him, obviously. And so your private people can take over a certain role, and it's just a question of communication between your professional and your private life, for example, also.
And you were talking about community. How important is it to have a community? Are we at all able to succeed without having a community around us, behind us?
I think it's the most important or most crucial thing, because the idea of a team in your business world oftentimes also is similar to the general idea of a community. And I think that the big mistake a lot of artists are doing at a certain crucial point when they have their first success and they are getting bigger and bigger, is that they have this tipping point where they forget that they had a community from the start. And it's very important to value those people. And valuing them means to, for example, also see that when you started in a certain kind of small clubs or something like that, you come back to them and you give back to those people who supported you in the beginning. So no, without a community, I don't think that long-term artist career would be possible. And especially from the booking side, I can say that with TikTok and all these kind of things, all the time, with club programming and festivals, we see artists who are getting famous for a short time period or have a hit. And obviously we get requests because sometimes those artists are selling tickets, but maybe only for that one period, when for one summer. Because they don't have a community. They just have that one track or they just have that one momentum. And afterwards, they are really slipping away. And that is the problem with the industry. For a label, for example, or for a publisher, for them it's not important if you are successful also the years on, because if they had at a certain point got your rights for publishing or master rights, then they are not that interested anymore if your career is going down south, because they say, okay, there's 100,000 people, other people where maybe can collect their rights. And so if you have a community or a strong community, that makes you independent from the bigger players in the industry. And that is a thing that also all the time I hear when talking with festivals, when talking with labels or publishers. It's getting more relevant than ever.
Makes sense. And you were also talking a little bit about like long-term success. So how, because it might seem that you want to be eager and have rapid success and get viral and get where you want super fast, but how important is it actually to have like a sustainable long-term plan and a long-term career instead of this super rapid growth?
I mean, it can also be a goal, and I think I would say I can also understand if somebody says that to himself, to say, hey, I want to have a very good time for 5 or 10 years, and I just want to, like have a couple of hits, really see everything, and then I'm gonna dip out again or do something else. I know a couple of people who really had that kind of approach, but I think if you are really looking out for yourself, also mentally, then it's really important to have a long-term plan. And the problem is nowadays that whether there are two options. The one option is you really try to build that career, and it's really just like a organic growth, which takes time. So sometimes you see on the left and right people upwards very fast due of social media or other things, and it can be kind of frustrating. So it's hard to stay on that way, but in the end, yeah, you reach that goal. Or if you are lucky on that way, it can happen that you, because you have been consistent, that you get a hype. And I think, especially from Berlin, there is best example of consistency with Keine Musik in the international music, who were doing the same things for years and years, and part of those guys played for, I don't know, three-digit amount of money on the third floor at Bootshaus in Cologne, and then years later they are like the leading figure of a whole genre and playing basically everywhere and selling out huge locations like here in Berlin. And I think what is the very big difficulty is to then hold that and to then also not internally break off that. And I think it's only possible if you also have a team who's helping with that.
And let's talk a little bit about brand building, because we talk about, it's a very saturated industry, and everybody, I mean, especially in Berlin, everybody is a DJ, everybody wants to make it. So how, and as you also mentioned, like comparing yourself to others, and there are so many of everything out there. So how can we navigate ourselves in building our own brand, and how important is this actually?
I think brand building always depends a little bit on the genre, and it depends on your own goal in your career. There is the problem, as I said, with getting famous or getting successful by just having a streaming hit or radio hit, or getting successful by TikTok, because oftentimes these acts absolutely lack brand identity. And we see that from the book programming, that there's a lot of acts which, for example, last year we had on the table, which this year are completely irrelevant for us. And we already know from the festivals and clubs that we worked with this year, there's a couple of names which we booked because they are interesting right now, but we know we won't book them next year because we already now saw that they don't have an artist brand identity, and we only booked them of the momentum, social media reach, and maybe some of them even sold a couple of tickets. But this also always happens in the process of the programming, and I think it's a little bit sad, and it's definitely something which also comes from the customers of festivals and clubs, because they are also influencing the market due to their own kind of way of consuming events. But I would always tell people that they should first work on their brand identity and then try to get big by a hit or by social media. Because if you are having that hit and you already had a brand identity before and you had a community before and all these kind of things, then it's way easier to hold that and also maybe have another hit and have another hit and have another hit. And I think one example from the current time, who might not have been on the market that long before, but who very good was able to produce a brand identity in a very short time, was Bund or Bund, depending on how people want to pronounce it. because he saw, okay, I'm really now having a hit, it's really getting up, so I need to check out how I'll be able to reproduce this situation and how I'll be able to reproduce this momentum. So he basically produced this in the round concept, which he always, with his tours also, brought to another level, because I think the next version was not in the round, but like all the round or something like that. So he always, like also played with the words, played with the concepts, and that is a very good example on how to work on a brand identity where people connect with you and where you can basically reproduce what you did in the first place.
Okay. And I know that social media is always, I guess, a big topic in every topic, yeah. And I know that also there, it's of course not one size fits all, because everybody have to do it in their own way. But do you have any advice for artists when it comes to navigating with social media?
Oh, that's a very difficult question. What I see is people nowadays oftentimes try to get views on TikTok or Instagram Reels, obviously, because they hope that this will help them sufficiently to increase the listeners to Spotify or the attention by promoters and booking agencies. But it's way more important, in my opinion, when it comes to social media, that you have a lot of UGC. For people who don't know this term, like user-generated content about you, then only having a social media profile by yourself, which is having maybe nice viewing numbers. Because getting a lot of views on TikTok isn't that complicated. For fun, like a couple of months ago, my girlfriend and I started a social media account on TikTok, which we called in German kein Couple account, which means no couple account, just to try and fuck around with a couple of things on TikTok and see how algorithms are working. So basically, in a short time, we had a lot of videos which got like middle 6 digits of views, because we knew how to trigger the algorithm the right kind of way. Did that benefit in any kind of way on the first thing, our channel? Not really. It was a little bit of growth, but not that much. And on the other side, did it transfer to any of the other profiles that we had connected with that? Not that much, because on the one hand, we didn't do it consistently, but also on the other hand, there was not really a connection in this kind of videos to us as persons or as brands. The videos were funny, they were interesting, they were maybe relatable, but we as persons were not able that the other side, the consumer, could identify with us. And that happens most of the time if you have UGC content about your music and UGC content about your artist profile, because people obviously relate more with other people who are talking about an artist or who are talking about somebody famous than they nowadays can relate directly to the person who is famous. And so, in my opinion, that is the thing that I would advise most of the people, to be able to create content on your own, which other people find interesting to reproduce. And so you have that connection and identity chain.
Interesting, thank you. And when we were talking also together with Benamar last week, we were also discussing you were also discussing a little bit the difference on how you work and how he work. And now it's sad that he's not here. But would you still like to mention something about this, like what a difference can be in how different agencies, depending on different genres, different workflows, how the difference can be there?
Yeah. So the thing is, like, actually, when we are doing programming, we are also oftentimes booking artists from agencies like Adrenaline, or also like from Polyamor or other agencies. And the huge difference is, without being rude to ourselves, but they are credible. So our kind of music that we do or that we present in a lot of ways is, on the one hand, as said, very radio related, or on the other hand, more like streaming related. And so the thing is, especially if you are an artist who is having like radio hits, those artists are oftentimes on the booking side requested from promoters who are owning clubs which are not, how to say it, very credible. So the people going there are not really going for the music, they are just going for general entertainment, or maybe to have like yeah, like one evening where they can do social media content or stuff like that. And the same also goes for most of the events from the standpoint of festivals. It's more about going to a festival for lifestyle, not going to a festival for music. And so what he is doing, he is managing artists and booking artists who are really having a community for them as the person, and who are really having a community for the sound that they are doing. So the approach that usually those kind of agencies are doing is working on a credible strategy by building the artist, by working together with, for example, exclusive showcases with certain clubs which have which are recommended and which have, for example, at a Billboard or other magazines, a high ranking. And they are really trying, to build that brand around them. And that is a different approach than what we are doing, because with us it's more like, on the one hand we are directly talking about maybe ticket sales, or on the other hand we are more talking about, is that artist fitting your vibe and filling in your needs to be able to write a commercial picture. And even oftentimes, for example, does the sponsor know it? A little bit stupid to say that, but like, does your local bank know that artist? Because the person who's working in the local bank marketing, who's maybe 50 or 60, says, okay, I've heard that name a couple of times when I was listening to WDR in the radio. So that's a completely different game. And I think both of us can oftentimes learn from each other. And for me, it's always very interesting to be in connection and to talk about these kind of things, because what you also can see from the gig and festival standpoint, back in the days when I started, you have had very, very separated genres. So usually there wouldn't be a festival where on one festival stage there's playing like hard techno and underground hard techno, and the other stage you are having German Manneschlager music, and then you have a main stage where during the day German pop acts are playing, but in the evening commercial EDM acts are playing. So this is more and more the case in Germany, and that's very difficult for both of us, because he needs to take care that if he's placing his artists in this commercial setup, that his artists are not seen as uncredible and are seen as super commercial and selling themselves. And we, on the other side, must be careful that we are communicating that in the right way, so that the lifestyle kind of festival goer or the local person isn't thinking, what the fuck am I doing with all these, a little hard to say that, like Berlin druggies who are now on my festival as well. And that is actually something that we look out a lot in the programming sector at the moment. And that is also something which I think in the future will be more and more normal, that you have way more genres at one festival.
Interesting, thank you. Do you want to mention any example of like an artist that you have worked with and that has had like success from, let's say, from club gigs to festival stage? Any, let's say, case study from your side that you want to mention?
We have one artist who is very commercial in the German harder dance music, also connected with German vocal music. He's doing a lot of like reworks or covers. He's called Noise Time. And it's actually also therefore quite interesting because he's coming from Eastern Germany. So this was also very difficult to get that artist out of the Eastern German part into also the Western German part. And he started playing when we started working together, I think maybe I'm also transparent when it comes to numbers, like $300, $500 or something like that, and did a couple of own events. And now the artist fee range between like 4 to 6K in most of the times. And this artist, it's also going higher at the moment, but this artist, he started where he built a community, and then a lot of his things also went viral on TikTok and Instagram, but people always liked him for his very direct social media communication, and people always liked him for not giving a fuck, which he always did with his kind of remixes, because people obviously said, yeah, it's super cringe to do dance music or electronic dance music mixed with German vocal music. And in the last few years, it yeah, a lot of people really like that kind of music. And there's one other act in the same genre, for example, HBZ, which I would say is at the moment one of the most important acts to book for commercial festivals, and getting a high 5-digit amount of money, and really showed that this kind of style can also be very successful. And Noise Time always also stayed in his with his ideas. So it's coming back to the point of authenticity. We try to release a couple of tracks which are more like international, or which are more like having, how to say it, less cringy sound. And those tracks didn't perform that good. And also those, if he's playing them live, they are not performing that good. But his most success he had with remixing the German tracks, which went so big that even a couple of like very big international headliners started playing that remixes on German festivals like Lollapalooza or Tomorrowland on the main stage. So because they found it very funny to play at a German festival a German hard dance track with a German vocal, and that really showed us it's very important to stick with your idea.
Thank you. So as a final question from my side, before we can go into some audience questions, do you have any no-goes? Any tips for artists, for the audience, of things to not do?
I think the first thing is very easy. It's ego, whether it's to the people that you work with, whether it's to your audience, whether it's basically to anybody. It's starting from coming to the club and being nice to the people that work at the club, because they are the foundation of everything that we do. And the same for the festivals, and also for small shows on the land side, for example. And also, just not because something is big and shiny and super cool doesn't mean it's not valuable and it's not worth. So that is, I would say, one thing that you should never do. The other no-go, I would say, there are not really any no-goes, because I think there was never a point where you had so endless option of marketing yourself, or of working your music by yourself. As said, you don't need us, you don't need a management, you don't need a booking art management, you don't need a label or a publisher in the beginning to start, in my opinion. We can be a helping hand at a certain point, and we can maybe arrange some things, but I think in general, the no-go is to not be confident on yourself. So to think, hey, I need that next contact, I need that next person, or anything like that. No. Every knowledge, everything that you need to know, it's out there. It's out on social media. It's out on all the kind of platforms. It's out on like things like this event. So I think the one big no-go for me is saying, yeah, I'm not able to do it on my own. You definitely are.
Robin, thank you so much for your advice, for your knowledge, for your tips. Thank you. A big round of applause for Robin, everyone. So let's see, are there any questions from the audience? Don't be shy.
Hello, thank you. A question from the last topic about like community building and stuff. Is there any, are there some tips for female artists, as like, for example, you get a lot of replies on Instagram and stuff from guys, and like it's sometimes going in a kind of direction where you're not sure, like, okay, is this just like building community, or is there like another kind of purpose or something? That's sometimes a kind of a struggle, because I would like to build community, but at the same time sometimes it's just
I would say on the first side, therefore that I'm a man, I think I can't really rely 100% to that struggles. But with our agency, which stands behind DJ Mag, my business partner, Catherine, she oftentimes talks about exactly these problems. And we also have one artist in our booking management, Lunax, who also has this kind of problem. So we decided when it comes to communication to, to be a little bit more step back on social media in the direct messages, for example. And I know that it's not easy and very difficult, but I think one very important thing is to always listen to your gut feeling when you think something is off. And the other thing is to maybe not think that you must do that on your own. So if you think it's overwhelming to you to take care of that, try to get somebody else in your team who can be of help for these kind of things. And I would also recommend to maybe take somebody else who's female and who's also a professional in that business, because they can relate way easier to you. Because when I'm talking about me, obviously I've never experienced these kind of things, or when I talk to my male artists and ask them, they didn't experience it that often, or it's also put into another frame. Also with male artists, we had the cases that people have been, how to say it, like scarily as fans. So it can happen. But when it comes to marketing of your brand as a female artist, I think it doesn't matter if you're female or not, male artist. I think it does only matter that you are an artist. And I think it's completely 100% your decision how you want to market yourself. If you want to market yourself in a, let's say, sexy kind of way, then it's your decision. So nobody has the right to tell you anything about that. And I think then we come back to the standpoint of authenticity. If you are marketing these things authentic because you are standing behind that, and for example, we are now starting with somebody from the more like Schlager kind of music who is really more marketing herself in a sex sales kind of way, then it's your way of marketing yourself. And don't listen to other people who are telling you you should do it that way or that way because you're a woman. I think that's crap.
Okay, thank you.
I think we had one in the back.
Hello, hi. So I already prepared this questions because I just moved to Berlin, like from all the way from Asia. So I would like to ask, like, how important is a local scenes base when aiming for international festival bookings, and can a strong like digital presence can substitute for the local support? Like, yeah.
I would say a local scene can be very important, and I think that would be great if he would be sitting here because he has the best examples of that, because what he did with Adrenaline in Cologne and with his resident DJs, for example, like Hugo, he did exactly that. So they really built them locally, and then the transferring of that, how to say it, local community vibe to social media helped them to get broader kind of attention. And then obviously people want to have that same kind of feeling when watching on social media what these people locally are feeling with each other. Then they want to have that feeling as well. And then there are two options. The one option is to go to the city and experience it there. I mean, Berlin is the best example of that because all the people are coming here because they want to experience the vibe. But obviously the other option also is to get that vibe transferred by booking the artist or booking a whole collective. And so I would say especially in the like more niche electronic dance music genres, local marketing and local community building is very important. In the things that we are doing, I would say honestly it's a little bit less important because we are, how to say it, we are more focused on numbers, success numbers, and not on credible local club communities.
Any other questions? No. Then, Robin, would you like to give any sort of final conclusion, anything that the audience should take with them from today's talk?
Yeah, most of the times we also don't have any fucking clue. So if you are talking to a manager, booking manager, or anybody else at the moment, the whole industry is, in my opinion, most of the time quite clueless. And that's also the thing that I see when I'm talking with a lot of also like labels, because they don't have an idea what's actually working. So just be confident by yourself and try to find your own way. And that's also the thing that we try. I mean, we are still a boutique agency on the management, on the booking as well. And we obviously have a lot of contacts with DJ Mac Germany, which we get, but also I think if you are just following your peers and you are true to yourself and love what you do, then at a certain point you will get there. But don't let people interrupt your peace in that process.
Robin, again, thank you so much. Once again, a big round of applause for Robin, please.